Hello there, this is ModelOmega, and welcome back to my Thracia 776 playthrough. In this episode, Chapter 4, The Dungeon. This is where shit really starts hitting the fan. Luckily, I only had to re-record this chapter a few times. It's very long, not as long as the last chapter, but that chapter was long because you had to move a whole bunch of units to homes and back. This one is long just because the gameplay portion of it is very long. This is also the point where Thracia 776 gets very unique with its chapter structure, and you'll see very quickly. Hahaha, well, this is bound to get me a promotion. Dashin, don't let that boy escape until the people from Connaught come to retrieve him. Yes. I shall go to the arena. Woman, you will have to come with me as well. Me? Why? Don't you want to see the girls? Girls? Marita and Nana? That's right, they are doing quite well. Don't worry, I haven't laid a finger on them. Are you really going to let me see them? You have my word. All right, please show me to them. Of course, my lady. Brighton, I want you to rescue the people trapped in the dungeon level. I will go search for the children with Asvel. We will go to your aid once we release the people here. Very well, then we shall meet again. Good luck! Lara, your only hope. Will you be alright? Yeah, leave the lockpicking to me, but make sure you protect me, okay? If someone attacks you, just take his weapons. You can do that much. Well, that's easier said than done. I can't carry heavy weapons like you can. Don't worry, Lara. Brighton and I will protect you. Let's go. And bam. This is when the game starts throwing whammies at you. If you remember from last chapter, Leaf got captured and is now sitting a cell here in Manster. All of our weapons have been taken away, and they're actually distributed randomly across the chests on this side, and there are 8 other chests on the other. To start this chapter, all we have is Brighton, the dismounted axe knight that's forced to use swords, Makua, a slightly mediocre sword fighter, and Laura, the thief with a durability that is somehow even less than wet tissue paper. Damn. This just ain't my day. Excuse me, are you Leafus, the boss of the Leafus Pirates? Huh? Yeah, that's me. I knew it. You look just like the guy in the Wanted ad. Looks like I'm pretty famous. Wait a minute, maybe I can use these guys. What's the matter, boss? Something on your mind? Well, I was actually thinking of a way to get out of this prison cell. What? We can get out of here? Think, you idiot. Once the boys find out I've been captured, they'll be sure to come rescue me. I'll be out of here sometime soon, so it'll be a short while. Let's be friends, eh? Wait, in that case, can you let me go with you? Well, I'll consider it if you work for it. Really, leave it to me. See these muscles? I'll knock out a guard or two any day. Leafus, let me go with you too. Hey, me too. Haha, idiots are easy to manipulate. Now I just have to wait for a chance. So, if you have Laura release the cell that Leafus and the 3 bandits are in, the bandits will start attacking the enemy soldiers, but they'll leave after, I believe, about 10 turns, which kind of sucks because they are very useful for this portion of the chapter, even if they sometimes steal your kills. Looks like everyone's getting excited now. So, what are you in here for? Who are you? I'm Fergus, a traveling mercenary. Back in the city, I saw some soldiers harassing a girl, so I went in to stop them. And the next thing I know, I get thrown in here. Great, huh? You call that just stopping? You nearly killed him, poor thing. Well, I hate to remind you, but you're the one who stepped up to them first. Yeah, and then they threw me in here as well, because they thought I was with you. It's all your fault. What am I going to do now? Come on, there's no point in crying over spilled milk. I'm kind of tired, so I think I'll take a nap. Wake me up at dinner time. I don't believe. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Karen. Pleased to meet you. Karen? That's an unusual name for a Thracian. Oh, I'm from Silesia. I had just arrived in Manster, and then I end up here because of him. Silesia, that's far up north, right? What did you come all the way here for? Well, our prince suddenly left the country. The queen has already passed away, and the princess is still too young, so we didn't know what to do, so we set out to look for the prince. I heard that Silesia was destroyed by the Empire. The royal family is still safe? The people opposing the Empire all moved to a city called Thove in the far north, where they're defending the royal family. I'm going to become a full-fledged Pegasus Knight and help them out, too. Wow, that means you can fly, right? Well, I'm still not a knight yet, so flying is the best I can do, but my Pegasus and I understand each other. His name is Hermes, and he's so cute and smart, he must be flying around here looking for me. So why did the prince leave the country? He said he was going to look for the king, but you see, the king's kind of weird. He left years ago, abandoning his country and family. Naturally, everyone's mad, so we need Prince Seti to return and take the throne. I was sent here to pick him up, but then because of this guy... Because of who? You know, can't you keep it down? This is a prison. Some of us are trying to get some sleep. You're the only one who can stow away in a place like this. You're so insensitive. Hey, keep it quiet over there. Told you so. Something on your mind? You can talk to me about it. I might be able to help. Yes, maybe you can help me. Man, this chapter and the next one have a lot of exposition. So anyway, I'm going to talk a bit about the new units I've acquired. Makua here is the first sword fighter we've gotten, or mercenary, or myrmidon. I'm inconsistent in what I call them. She's the basic definition of a decent unit. She has a PCC of, I believe, 2, which is really nothing special. Her stat growth is overall meh, and her starting stats are bleh. Really the only thing she has going for her is she does have ambush just like Havan. And, interestingly, unlike other female mercenaries in this game, she promotes to the hero class, which is typically a male locked class. This actually means that Makua is the second female axe user in the whole series, albeit only until she promotes. The first axe user in a Fire Emblem game that didn't have to promote to use axes was Jill in Radiant Dawn. You know, that's something that's always bothered me about Fire Emblem. They talk about Pegasus Knights as female exclusive, mostly with the justification that Pegasi just don't like men for some reason. But if you know anything about mythological history, you'll know that the inspiration for the Pegasus Knight comes from the legend of Bellerophon, who rode Pegasus in order to slay the beast Chimera, and Bellerophon was very, very male. Isn't that just weird? Why don't we have male Pegasus Knights? And for that matter, why don't we have female fighters and pirates? Ugh. Anyway, second unit. Brighton is the first Axe Knight we've gotten, and the second Cavalry unit. However, the next few chapters are all indoors, so we won't be able to use axes or his horse. Instead, he helpfully starts with a steel and iron sword. Brighton's stat growth is kind of bad, to be honest, and because he's a mounted unit, his starting stats are kind of bleh. But he does have Wrath, which instantly makes him useful, at least until his base stats don't improve enough for him to be useful, and you'll just stick to using Othin again. But if he does turn out alright, he can be a very useful unit, as any unit with Wrath in this game is automatically good. And then we also have Laura, which is the second of 3 thieves we get in this game. Unlike Leafus, who at least can steal some weapons and can deal chip damage due to an okay starting strength, Laura can't really do any of that because her build is terrible and she literally starts with 0 strength and 0 defense. Anything that looks at her funny will probably kill her in 1 hit. She does have 1 niche use, but it's about halfway through the game and I'll talk about it when it gets to that. Anyway, besides rescuing our units and looting these chests, we also really want to make sure all of these villagers can get out by opening their cells and allowing them to get to the left and right staircases. Enemies will spawn from there eventually, so you're going to need to protect them as they advance, and you need all of them to escape because that triggers a Gaiden chapter after this, and you really want to get to that Gaiden chapter because it's where you recruit your first and one of the best mages in the game. So, let's also talk about the two other units that we have with us that are trapped in the cell with Leaf. Fergus is a free knight, or later called sword knight in later games. He's basically, I guess, what you would call a mounted mercenary. He's locked to swords, which means that, aside from a movement penalty and a few reduced base stats, he doesn't really get any penalties for dismounting. Fergus is, without a doubt, one of the best units in this game, not for any skill he has, or because his growths are really great, but because he is the first of a few units in this game that has a pursuit critical coefficient of 5, the highest value you can get. Fergus is a crit machine, and he is so much fun to use. And unlike, say, Brighton, Fergus's dismounted base stats are already okay, so he just has more to gain when he mounts, and then more again when he promotes. He's really hard to screw up, honestly, because now you have Crusader scrolls, so if you feel like you always need to have an awesome Fergus, just stick him with your scrolls and you'll always turn out great. The other unit in the cell with them is Karen, who is a Pegasus rider, except just like Fergus, because this is indoors, she's dismounted, meaning she can't use her native weapon lances, only swords. Except in this game, mounted Pegasus riders can't use swords either, despite the fact that they could use swords and lances in Genealogy of the Holy War. Ugh. Like I said, the dismounting, taking away your primary weapon, and forcing you to use swords is just silly. At least that isn't the case with bow knights. That would just be even more stupid. So, now my current objective is to free my compatriots and equip them with weapons because all of their items were taken away. Maku and Brighton both start with an extra sword, but, well, this is why I told you to try and capture those mercenaries back in 2x. You're going to be strapped for swords eventually in this chapter and the next, and you're going to want to equip all of your guys so they just don't get captured by every enemy. Makua helpfully starts with a chest key, so she can at least open the chests while Laura goes to open the cells, but this chapter would have been so much easier if one of the other guys started with a door key as well. I mean, with just one thief and one set of chest keys, it takes a long time for stuff to get interesting in this chapter. And the next one pulls this kind of prison break thing much better. Hey, boss, the cell door's open. Wow, it really did happen like you said. Huh? What's the matter? Aren't you happy your friends came to help you? What? Yeah, of course I am. Well, someone really did come. I guess talking crap sometimes does work. Leafus may be a murdering bastard, but he's a pretty funny and interesting one. Because of his stats, Brighton is only as useful as the RNG is. He's really only useful because of his wrath. I mean, he has a PCC of 1 and no otherworldly interesting stats. So, if he decides to keep missing on the first hit of every enemy phase, well, he's basically dead weight. Only good as a meat shield. This chapter eventually starts throwing lots of reinforcements, but it does give you a very generous portion for you to try and rescue as many people as you can. This is easier said than done. It's mostly luck if one of the first chests you open contains Leafus' lockpick, which then makes completing the rest of the chapter much easier as it basically doubles your rate of opening everything. But, I mean, my first recording of this, the lockpick was in the top right chest, and it was the last one I opened, so I thought I'd go to that right away, and the lockpick turned out to be somewhere else. So, you know, luck of the draw. Yeah, expect to see that with Brighton if you actually really decide to go with them. And don't end up giving them all of Crusader Scrolls right at the start. These brigands are very useful as distractions. The soldiers like to go after them, they're very beefy and can take hits, and when they're hurt a lot, they'll use vulneraries and stay in place. They're basically there to distract all the enemies from you, although the degree of which they'll distract you is based on if the enemy feels they'll get more damage on them than you. For some reason, they even like to capture the soldiers if they have the chance, which I frankly don't understand. I mean, they're breaking out of a prison. I'm not quite sure that holding on to a barely conscious guard is going to help you. And unlike you, NPCs and enemies, when they capture, they don't let go of them. They just take their items and continue to hold on to them for I don't know why. Also, one interesting thing about NPCs in this game, there are both friendly, neutral, and enemy NPCs. There are ones that are just people on the map, there are ones that help you out, and then there are ones you can even attack and will try to attack you. It's very interesting. It kind of reminds me of Genealogy of the Holy War, where the enemy had multiple enemy phases for basically each castle commander. It's very interesting. I would recommend you at least try to capture one or two of the soldiers with short lances in either this chapter or the next, because if you don't, you're probably going to forget, and eventually you'll end up outside. Karen will mount, and you'll have nothing to equip her with, because, like I said, in this game, Pegasus riders can't use swords when they're mounted. I was just re-looking over some items on Serenus Forest to see if there's anything I missed, and there was one interesting thing I forgot about Crusader Scrolls to mention. They have an interesting side effect in that any character that's holding a Crusader Scroll cannot be critical hit, unless it's from the skill Wrath. But that's not really an issue until you're very late in the game, and you're going to start seeing a lot of enemies with seemingly randomly placed skills. But hey, that's a really great item to know about. Well, Prince Leaf, looks like someone came to rescue us. Let's get out of here while we can. Who are they? It could be anybody. For now, we have to run. The stairs to the north lead outside. I'll buy time for you, so you go first. But what about you? Probably will get captured again, but I don't mind as long as you're able to escape. I can't do that. When I escape, so does everyone else. Ha! Alright, kid. I'll tag along with you for a while. I can't really just ditch you after hearing that story. Well, I guess everyone does have their defined points. What? Are you attracted to me now? Huh? No, of course not. Just kidding. Well, what are you gonna do? The leader of the magic group is a guy named Seti. Isn't that the prince you're looking for? Most likely, but right now we need to help Lord Leaf. I can't forgive that Roderick person for taking girls as hostages. I'll help Lord Leaf escape too. You? Can you fight? I'll do my best. Well, well, looks like I got quite a handful now. There isn't a lot of dialogue between non-primary characters in this game, but what there is pretty well written, I must say. Also, it's implied within the game mechanics that Fergus and Karen do have a thing for each other, because they give each other a support bonus. Isn't that nice? It has just occurred to me that I have actually not talked about Karen's stats or combat utility at all, so let me go over that. So basically, she's fast, has good luck, but everything else is kind of meh, especially her starting HP. Luckily, this is all basically fixed by just the Hazel scroll. It cures her low HP and her mediocre strength. She does only have a pursuit critical coefficient of 1, but she's the first flying unit you'll get until about halfway through the game, and the fact that she supports Fergus instantly makes her useful, not so much on her own, but making Fergus even better. I mean, a couple chapters in this game basically force you to use her because she flies and you're going to need someone that can fly to reach certain objectives, so you might as well train her and make the most out of it. That's the kind of stuff you're going to see a lot from Fergus. First attack hits, and then every attack after that is crit, 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 crit. Oh, it's just so awesome. You may also notice that the dismounted Free Knight has its own unique sprite, and I always thought that was kind of interesting. They actually don't use the regular dismounted knight animation, they actually use the mercenary or sword fighter animations. Really goes along with the fact that the Free Knight is kind of described as a mounted mercenary. And now I'm going to speed the next portion up a bit, as things only start to get interesting again once I'm near the north part of this chapter, where the end is. All there's left to do right now is open up the rest of the chests, get the rest of the villagers out, and get to where the escape area is. So I'll see you back in a bit. Wouldn't that brigand have a much easier time escaping if he just let go of the soldier he probably has just slung across his back? And this is why I said that you really need to bring your anti-armor weapons and magic swords. There are tons of armors in this chapter and the next. They have high defense, and you need a way to bring them down, or you're going to get pelted to death with the mages they accompany. One thing I would say you should try to do that I forgot to fully accomplish in this chapter, Fergus starts with a C in swords, but he also has a high amount of already accumulated EXP and weapon rank, and if you just have him attack enough enemies, eventually he'll get a B rank, which will let him use the Fire Sword and the Armor Slayer, and he's a much better user of them than Leaf because he has a higher build. It's very helpful for the start of the next chapter if you can immediately equip him with an Armor Slayer. I didn't, but luckily I was only 2 attacks away from doing it, but it's something you should really try to accomplish. Plus, it'll also let him use the Brave Sword you pick up in the next chapter. One returning thing from Genealogy of the Holy War that is quite different is Leaf's own Light Sword. And not just in the stats, I mean in its appearance. In Genealogy, the Light Sword was relatively plain looking with a silver color, but in this game, it's much more ornate in design with a golden hue to it, and I think this was done to make the sword look more unique as a Lord's special weapon, much like the falchion or ragnall. And I've just noticed that I've hit the 25-minute mark here, so I think I'll say that's enough for this particular part. I'll see you guys next in the second half of Chapter 4, and eventually in Chapter 4X. Oh man, that just took me so long to record. Anyway, this has been ModelOmega, and thank you for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, or subscribe if you feel like it. Please at least leave a comment. It really makes me smile. See ya.